I'm ChosenArchitect, and this is the Stoneopolis mod pack. There's a little bit of a disclaimer and heads up, this is going to be the final episode, but there's still some things that I definitely want to show for those of you who are still playing this mod pack. Power, and applied energistics in Stoneopolis. Well, that's at least what we're going to be working on today. To get this beast up and running, I'm going to have to, well, build something big, and I've already got most of it built up here. Well, for what you can actually see inside of this guidebook here, if you were to go over to the multi-blocks and into the AE2 generator section, you will see that, well, what you see here is basically what I have here, but they don't look exactly the same because these are pylons, and pylons, well, end up having a multi-block when set up. But there's also a few things that you cannot see as well, and that is going to be, well, the block that is actually underneath the generator, which you can kind of see if you were to actually highlight, which is this thing right here, which doesn't make any sense at all in this because this can actually receive power from other sources. So you actually don't need an acceptor on here. But in this case, it is a part of the multi-block. But there's also another thing. If I put this together, it will tell me that this is not a completed multi-block. You might be kind of confused like I was when I was initially setting this up and testing it. And that is because you actually need to place a few more things in. You're going to need vibrant quartz glass for this generator. And this should be able to generate quite a bit of power, but the glass has to go like this. So let's grab some more of the vibrant glass because you need 5 of them actually in order to do this. And so I'll place that in. I'm also going to drop down here real quick, place this in, and I'm going to need a trap door to get myself out of here. Of course I am. Let's see, will that work? Oh no, that doesn't work. I'm going to have to break my way out of here. But yes, for some strange reason, it doesn't actually display the vibrant glass very well, nor does it give you a material list. So to be able to complete this full generator, which is going to be the AE2 generator from the Infinite Generator mod, we've got to set it up like so. So let's go ahead and place this in. And now this is going to use Certus quartz as a fuel. And we do already have it automated. Something I want to note though, once you turn this on, it doesn't actually send the power to the controllers or anything, which is kind of funny that it doesn't do that. It doesn't send anything at all, which I thought was kind of goofy. And yeah, there's probably reasons and stuff, but because of that glass, it does limit how much of this controller we can actually use inside of an applied energistics system. But we can actually use it, or at least I think we should be able to use it. And the way that we're going to do this is we're going to take power from this and send it into the controller system itself, because each one of these controller sides is technically 32 channels, which is quite a bit. Now to hook this up, I'm going to be actually switching to MV cables because currently our regular LV cables don't support the amount of power that this is putting out. This is going to put out, I believe, 460. If we take a look at the Certus, we can actually see how much. Yeah, 460 RF per tick, it says. And so we need to make sure we have a connector that can support that. So I'm going to place down an MV wire connector and then one here. And then we should be able to link these together. And that should be able to start powering this controller, thus powering our applied energistics system indefinitely. Well, so long as we can supply it with enough Certus quartz. And to get this bad boy up and running, I have myself some filters here with some of these nodes that are connected to my automation down here. So as long as I can get that connected into, for example, this node, we should be ready to go as soon as I place this filter in. There we go. So this should start pulling out a stack of these Certus quartz crystals and sending that over here. And just like that, my Infinity Generator is automated and ready to rock and roll. So it's now time, I think, to set up some applied energistics madness. So now it's time to get a little bit advanced with the auto crafting. And the way I want to do this is I want to have nodes off the side that are going to, for one, have our CPUs. So the CPUs are going to be kind of hanging from the ceiling. That's kind of the look I want to go. And then I want to have some pattern providers that are specifically for making the processors. And then I also want just a standard crafting tower. So I want these to hang down and to be connected. So I'm thinking right here, we can do like the crafting tower, I think would be fine. Now, the way that this works is we're going to need at least a co-processing unit and at least a crafting storage in order to do auto crafting with applied logistics. So what I'm doing here is I'm setting up 3 co-processing units for 1 storage, basically creating a CPU or a node that'll allow me to do multiple crafts inside of the applied logistics system. So it does take a little bit of pre-knowledge, and if you want to check out, I do have a video that does cover a little bit more in depth of applied logistics, but through here, I'm kind of rushing through the basis of the auto crafting. And then right here, I believe I should be able to get by with not connecting these pylons. I don't know if they actually use a channel or not. And I definitely don't want them connecting, for example, this line with this line. So we might have to kind of figure that out if that becomes a problem. But what I want to do, let's get our crafting box set up. So the way that this works is we are going to have a crafter here. And I might actually want this to be a little bit lower down. Yeah, I think I want it connected here. So we want the pattern provider to be connected up, just like you see. And I really wish I had a magnet at this point, especially since we were dealing with all this underground stuff. But over here, we'll place this sort of in a cross pattern. So I'm going to place it just like this, as you see here. And I'm going to kind of repeat this process down. And this should give us 8 pattern providers. So that should use up an entire 8 channels of our applied logistics system on this basic cable. Now, of course, this does have 32 per side, but for this particular setup, it should be kind of simple, and that's kind of what I'm working with. We don't need like a very crazy applied logistics system, I think, in this pack, especially as we start getting towards the end parts of this mod pack. But here we go. This should almost be done. We've just got to place the last 2. And that should use up all of our channels. I believe like that. It says network booting and device is now online. Now, here's where I was hoping that that wasn't going to be the case, but it does say device missing channels. And I think it's because this is using channels, and there is a way of actually preventing that from happening. So within applied logistics, we have these beautiful things called cable anchors, which you can also use to make facades. But in our case, we're just going to prevent them from connecting to the things we don't really want them to connect to. And to be able to make these, you just need some sort of knife and a little bit of iron or some other materials. And you can just place that right in place here. Perfect. And now these all should say device online, and we no longer have that issue. So yes, these pylons, unfortunately, they do take up channels. So you are going to have to block their connection if you're going to use this generator as a generator and also an applied logistics controller. Just a bit of jank to kind of work around, but we'll do it. We'll get through this. Now the plan is to potentially have more than one of these over here. So right now we just have this one, but we may need more later. So I'm going to leave some room. But on the back, I'm going to get my computer set up. Now when setting up the computers, like I said, we just need the storages set on here. And that's exactly what I'm getting set here. And each one of these blocks here, oh, that one ended up actually resetting. Each one of these blocks, by the way, just require 1 channel. So the entire multi-block requires that 1 channel that needs to be set up. I need some sort of like ability to move around. Built everything so high up. But yes, so like for example, this I add to that and you can see it drop down. But yes, this whole multi-block here, technically, this is 1 channel. This is 1 channel. So we should be able to get away with just having a cable run through here and connecting directly to the top. So if I add that like this, and also using that cable anchor to break that connection off, because we do not want that, we can just run this over here. And in the future too, what we could do is we can have this potentially set up for more. We can just add more to this whole grouping. So there we go. And as you can see, both of these are online, and that should be using 2 channels for each one of these. So now for the fun part, I get to actually play around with the pattern providers and set up automation for all of the inscribers. So we're going to need, I believe, 5 of the pattern providers. So 5 pattern providers. We're going to need 1 for each of the different presses and then 1 for a full process. And so the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to first get my inscribers placed in, and I'm going to place them in up here for right now. So just like that. And then what I want to do is I want to rotate them using a wrench until this face that you see right here is facing down. You can have them facing up as well. Just depends on where you're going to put the providers. But I want them facing down. So just like this, I'm going to right click at the bottom and then right click the top. And that just gets that face facing down, just like you see there. Now, on the inside of these, I need to configure them to auto export turned on. So with the auto export turned on, this basically allows us to send the ingredients from the pattern provider into the inscriber. And then as soon as the product is done and finished, it will automatically send it back out into the pattern providers. So this right here essentially fully automates all of the inscribers. The only thing we need to do is we need to make sure that we set up all of the recipes appropriate and making sure that it sends to these like it's supposed to. So now the hardest part is, well, just actually making the recipes for everything. By the way, learn something very interesting. If you're on low health, don't unequip your heart canister as you'll just explode. I just found that out and all of my items went everywhere. By the way, that is something that is actually getting fixed in the next update. There will be a graves mod and also some other things that are going to get fixed. The ability for you to, I believe, make moss is going to be available. So you should be able to get yourself some glowberries and actually start utilizing some moss, all of which is going to be fantastic, especially if you plan on making diesel generators. Now, another thing to note, blank patterns, which are used for the auto crafting, are kind of expensive, not because of any of these other things, but because of glowstone. And glowstone does have a pretty extensive process in order to get. We have to, one, crush down cobble into gravel, then turn the gravel into sand in the crusher. And then we also need to send it over here, and it has to run through the blazing fluid in order to make soul sand. Then that soul sand needs to work its way over into an eroding fluid, and that's where you get a pretty low chance of getting glowstone. Anyways, with all of that out of the way, I can go ahead and start actually making the patterns. So what I want to do is, I think first and foremost is probably automate some of the things from Applied Energistics. It really does feel like that's kind of what Applied Energistics turns into. You have to automate all of the things from Applied Energistics kind of to really make sure you can automate things down the road. And it's not just all about automation, even though it kind of is a little bit. We want to be able to export and import and also send items in upon request and craft and all kinds of stuff outside of just its storage functionality. And one thing that I'm excited for is just simply being able to route items a little bit better around the base. And also do fluid crafting, which is going to be fantastic. That's one of the major things that we need is fluid crafting right now. And so being able to connect into this drawer and to be able to just request buckets of creosote oil for crafting creosote slabs is going to be fantastic. But like I said, we've got to get a little bit more of the Applied Energistics set up first. So to kind of just start simple, I'm just going to basically go, hey, here's the recipe for making printed silicone. However, we don't want the inscriber press, so I'll just make that the base for right now, and then just continue on with the rest of them. Just making sure you remove the need for the press, because we don't actually need these presses in our recipes. So I guess moment of truth, getting these placed in. So I'm just going to place in my patterns here, making sure that we put the right one in. So the logic needs to go in the logic, the calculation needs to go into the calculation one, just like that, and the engineering in the engineering one. And then last but not least, the final processor one, which is just going to have all of the finished processes, which is just going to contain all of those individual ingredients. So when it comes to crafting these, I'm going to hit the middle mouse button. That's typically the key, but I bet there is a mod in here that's conflicting with it. If you press down on the middle mouse or your scroll wheel, that's what's supposed to be able to pull this up. So if we go into options and controls, we can actually see if the middle button is being used for anything, and it is being used for sort inventory. I'm actually going to use, I think, something else to sort inventory. Let's do button 4 for inventory sort. That way we can clear that, and that should actually fix the issue with you not being able to request the crafts if there's items present. And so there we go. So now I can request, for example, 10 of these. So if I do this, what should happen is we should see this start to request some silicon, that start to finish the process, and hopefully everything start processing. It does look like these are now in. But right now we just don't have any power. So I'm going to run my cable just to basically give these power, because for some reason they're not receiving power through here. And there we go. So these are now powered up, and then over here you can see the operation happening, and you can see the fact that it is actually extracting back into the system, and we now have processors being automated. Honestly, such a simple process. Now for accessing this, since it's for one so high up, I definitely want to use a pattern access terminal. So this is going to allow me to see all of my molecular assemblers. And so I can just put patterns directly in here. It is recommended that you place them in vertically like this instead of horizontally. And that is for efficiency. But as you can see, we can access this from here. So these are for regular patterns. So I should be able to, for example, place in, like if I need to craft a crafting table, that should be able to be done here and sent over. And I think some good uses for this is like within applied energistics, some things we're going to need to be crafted quite often. And we only have 3 available here. Those things that we're going to need to craft quite often are, for example, the formation cores. So we're going to need a formation core. And then we're also going to need the items that are required in the formation core. This is a processing pattern, by the way. So we're going to need these. And this also brings us now into another section, and that is going to be into the flux dust. So flux dust and stuff and crafting all of that is definitely going to be handy and needed in here. And I did notice that some things that are going to be needed is this same recipe, but for the ender pearls. And I also can't help but, you know, make patterns for making our patterns. That's of course going to be done as well. So I should be able to just place these in just like so. And we now have patterns automated and a few of these little minor things we need to get set up. So now jumping back into the power that I was mentioning at the beginning of today's episode, and that power is going to be in the form of switching to Flux networks. Now I do have to kill the Wither a couple of times, and that's not honestly a huge deal, but each time we go through this operation, I get to limit the amount of cables and connectors I'm going to need. And this makes dealing with this cabling system a whole lot easier. So just having access to this is going to be fantastic because we can actually limit our output. So that way we don't burn out, for example, connectors and cables whenever we're actually utilizing Flux networks. And that means I can be a whole lot more efficient and effective when setting up our power. So that way we can get more power for our buck when it comes to all of these infinity generators. So now I should easily be able to craft all of the Flux network stuff that I may need. Ooh, very nice. So I now have 12, and that should complete that chapter. And it's just going to lead us into making Flux plugs and Flux points. Now, plugs are what you place on the thing producing power, and points are what you use to send that power back out. And the recipes for the plugs and points have definitely been changed in this pack, requiring these access points, which is kind of interesting, but also does cost a little bit of the Flux crystal material and ender pearls. All of which I went ahead and made crafting recipes for. Now, another thing that we can do with these plugs is we can actually monitor our connections. So it's going to allow me to kind of actually see how much power is going to be sent through, which is very, very nice. So I just need to create a network, and I'll just leave it at where it's at right here. And we'll go ahead and create our network. So now that we have that selected, we need to go in here and find our network and then select it. And now that we have that connected, all we have to do now is, for example, right here, I just want to route all of my power into this. So to do this, I know I'm limited in my LV connectors. And since this is LV power here, I want to make sure that we provide that on the side. So LV here, that's going to have 256, I think, RF that it supports. And I want to make sure that I can connect to this hub and send that over. Whatever's residual that is. So let's get that connected back up, just like that. And then I should be able to send the power here and do another connection and send it here. It doesn't have to be covered or anything like that. All these white cables are just covered cables just to be safe. Now, it doesn't show any power going anywhere because I'm not using that power yet. There's no buffer that is being stored in, and that's also because we're not using our flux point yet. So now let's try this. I've been struggling with this area and maintaining the proper amount of power going to it. So let's grab an LV wire and I'm going to place in my point right here. This is going to send power out and I'm going to connect to my own network. And what I should be able to do is, I believe I should be able to place a output onto my connector, and this connector should limit my power that is going into this. And it shouldn't burn out or anything, but it should be able to now provide the maximum 256 that these all need to run. And this right here, I think, is where this really comes in handy. And so now anytime that I want to get anything sort of connected up that needs power, I can just route it just like that by using a point and connecting a connector to it. Now, if you've made it this far into this video and this series, I do appreciate it. And I want to say thank you so much for all of your support throughout this series and also exploring on this server if you did manage to join it. The server is still going to stay up, but I am actually going to be moving on to another mod pack that I've been kind of waiting for a while. So of course, pardon me for not necessarily finishing this pack, as there's something more exciting that I really want to jump into. Now, something to note, I do want to talk a little bit about how this pack technically is going to go about ending. Just from my experience here. Basically, we would be getting into hostile neural networks. We'd be going through the process of getting all of the different mob types, and one of the best ways of doing that is by using the industrial foregoing mechanical dirt. Now, mechanical dirt is something that you basically feed power, and you also feed liquid meat, and that will spawn mobs. That is a fantastic way of getting enough mobs for your hostile neural network system. And then it seems like after that, that is going to be able to allow us to produce these predictions. And so we're going to run our way into the this whole system here, which is from the extended crafting mod. And we have to go through the whole process of getting all of the ingredients for the extended crafting. Not too bad, as we've already technically made the iron for extended crafting, but then things get a little bit different. Now, we basically need a lens for each of these color types and a compressor for each of these color cores. Now, the way that you can get all of the colored stone in abundance is by using the resource generators. So the resource generators can generate any colored stone, so you could use this to generate all of this. And that's how I would have gone through and produced all of these had I had completed the pack. And then, of course, there is an epic dragon fight, and several people have already fought the dragon on this server. Of course, in the time that I had been playing this pack, I had gone on a vacation, if you didn't know. So I had videos prepped up, and I had gone on vacation, and so, well, that's how it is. Unfortunately, I got to take a break every now and then. But in the meantime, a new pack had come out. And so I'm going to be transitioning over into, as you guessed it, all the mods 9 to the sky. And I hope you guys are just as excited as I am. And yes, I am going to be ending this one here. And, well, I will be playing from time to time with everybody on the server. This is a great place for me to come hang out with everybody who is still playing this on the server. And there might be an update video. I definitely want to sort of show off some basis on here if I can, but I definitely want to give some people some more time to get all of their stuff together. So with that, I definitely wanted to show off how to set up an applied energistics system to kind of get you guys started if you guys were definitely wanting to continue and complete the pack. This is the basis that you're probably going to want to set up in order to successfully get your feet into the applied energistics system and start actually utilizing it for your base. And with that, I'm going to have to bid you farewell on this pack. And hopefully you're not mad at me for not completing this one. I've completed a ton of other hard mod packs over the years, so definitely, you know, from time to time there will be packs that I don't 100% complete, much like this one. And like I said, hopefully you're not too frustrated with me. I know there will be some who definitely will be, and, you know, to each their own, I guess. But I'm excited to move on into the next mod pack, which, I don't know about you guys, but I'm pretty excited for. And so, guys, I thank you so very much. I'll, of course, see you in the next one. And as always, thanks for watching. Bye!